Hi, welcome to Chamber Chats. I'm Bruce Williams. I'm the CEO of the Greater Victoria Chamber of Commerce. I would like to acknowledge, as always, to begin, that I live and work on the ancestral territories of the Lekwungen-speaking nations, the Songhees and the Esquimalt. This program is brought to you through the support of Island Savings, a division of First West Credit Union. And usually I'm doing this in the podcasting studios at Czech Television, but today I'm in the Chamber office in downtown Victoria. Over the last little while, generations really, we've been talking about climate change, but it's only in the last many months that we've seen the reality of that stare us right in the face and come down upon us between torrential rains, the heat dome, the changes that we've seen, which has all of us sort of saying to ourselves, what can I be doing to help mitigate that? What can I do to green myself, to make my life a little more environmentally sustainable? There's an organization in town called Synergy that take care of that all the time. The executive director is Jill Doucette, and she joins me now. Jill, hi. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Bruce. Thanks for having me.
So I think a lot of people are saying to themselves, I need to green myself, but that's what you guys do, right? Tell me a little bit about what Synergy is and what you do.
Yeah, Synergy started in 2008. We've always been in Victoria, working and living on also the ancestral territories of the Lekwungen-speaking people, Songhees and Esquimalt nations. So we've been here for some time, and we were one of the first organizations of our kind, really focused on helping businesses measure and reduce their environmental footprint and essentially decarbonize. So we've learned a lot about where you can really make an impact there, and also where, the individual can really influence this broader shift towards a green economy.
We all have the will to do that, I think it's fair to say, but getting to a starting point or doing more of what we've already been doing, I think is what it's all about. So let's, for example, say that you come into a place like this chamber office, which you've done actually, to come in and do an analysis. Tell me about that process and what you do.
Really, when we work with any business, we're looking at practical solutions that make a true impact from an environmental and emission standpoint, but also have co-benefits for the organization. So while we're looking at emissions, we're also looking at how can you reduce costs, improve staff morale, create a better work environment. For example, getting rid of some of those flickering fluorescent lights that can give us micro headaches and get better lighting. There's so many co-benefits when you work on environmental initiatives within an organization. It's not just about making the world a better place just for the sake of reducing emissions and protecting other species. It can also, really make your whole environment a better place to work. So that's kind of how we approach things. And we look at, starting with some really easy wins and then getting into some of the tougher, projects to implement, such as, renewable energy, or maybe switching out your entire heating system after you've sort of picked off that low-hanging fruit.
I guess we could take a look at it from a workplace point of view and a home point of view as well. So, for example, this building where I'm sitting right now is not a new building. It wasn't built at a time when environmental concerns were really a factor. There's been some upgrades to make that possible. But how can someone, for example, work with a landlord if you don't own the building where you live or work to make sure that some of these upgrades are happening?
That's one of the biggest challenges for office-based businesses and retail and others is there are limitations in what you can do. We run the Vancouver Island Green Business Program, and many of the businesses, there's around 130 that are members of that program. So these businesses get certified, and there's a checklist that goes with that says, here's all the actions you can do. And, that checklist is loaded with actions. Some of them require landlord participation, and that frankly really does depend on if your landlord is willing to help you make those adjustments, or they're willing to make those investments in their business. Or perhaps you're in a triple net agreement. Your landlord will actually benefit from the energy savings. So it makes sense to wrap that in all together. But really with a landlord, if you can't find some co-benefit together, there's lots of things that individual businesses can do that don't require changes to the built structure, such as changing your purchasing policy and adjusting your programs for how employees arrive at work. What kind of computers and electronics do you buy? Your recycling programs. There's so much that you can do within your business that don't require a landlord's permission.
A couple of things we've done here in the last little while. part of it, frankly, is COVID related. We've gone to touchless faucets and sinks in the kitchen and the washrooms too, which means that you don't just run the water and run the water. It just comes out only when it's motion censored. And we've put lights on motion sensors too. So that means that the light's not continually burning. The light only comes on when you're in the room and then you leave. So what other kinds of common things can someone look at for both their home and their office?
Both home and office, one of the easiest things to do is look at your lighting. And that creates switching to LED lighting is something that we've been talking about for years. But sometimes you go into a space and you're like, oh, yeah, I did kind of forget about this area. Or these lights, these are emergency lights outside and they're on all the time. These are definitely ones I should change out. So, now there's LEDs available for pretty much every single type of bulb, even highly specialized bulbs. So even your refrigerator, you can switch out your lighting. So that's a really easy one to start with. Also, water efficiency is a big one. So if you haven't yet, changing out your shower head, your sink aerators, looking at perhaps purchasing a new toilet, which is not very expensive and can reduce your water use dramatically. And irrigation, maybe looking at installing an efficient drip irrigation system. So there's lots of little water efficiency things that you can do that can cut your water use very quickly down by like 30%. So again, there's cost savings there. And since it is wintertime, looking both at work and at home at some really low cost, simple insulation initiatives. So insulating your hot water pipes, looking at some draft sealing, and really keeping that heat where it's supposed to be. A lot of our older homes, especially in Victoria, are absolute energy sieves. And, sometimes it's going to be a $30,000 bill to change out all your windows and improve that. So what can you do right now? Looking at some really great, just simple weatherproofing. And that can just start with weather stripping on your doors. So those are great ways to start. That's the biggest area of impact when it comes to buildings is our heating and the natural gas and energy that goes into our heating system. So that's really the number one source of emissions in every home and building, especially in Victoria.
When you take a look at and this way of thinking has been around for a long time, you take a look at a drafty window or a drafty door, if you sort of feel around the edges of it, you understand how much of a gap is there. But if you total that whole gap up together into one space, it might be the equivalent of a hole that big in the middle of a window. That's how much energy, That's how much energy you're losing and how much cold is coming in. And it's funny you mentioned about the taps too, because in this cold snap that we had this year, a lot of people found that their pipes were freezing. But if the pipes had been insulated, they probably wouldn't freeze, right?
Right. Yeah. You reduce those risks as well. So, and again, that's where all these like great co-benefits come in. And another big one that is quite rewarding because you can see the results really quickly is improving your waste management. And, it's a new year. It's the time for New Year's resolutions. Looking at how can we cut back on our packaging. And there's just so many more options now. That of products you can buy, places you can shop, especially in the CRD. I think we all have the option to cut our blue bin volume by 50% if we just change some of our shopping habits. So that's a really rewarding one because you can do sort of next recycling day, I'm going to take a photo of my blue bin and see how much is there and then make some small changes and take a photo, as I go and see how far down can I get this.
Yeah, there's little things like you can do like you've got a bottle of detergent or something, you can buy a replacement that's not another bottle altogether that can then be recycled. So all of this, and these are the kind of things that you guys help people with, right? At Synergy, that's what you do.
Yeah, we focus on businesses, but we help lots of businesses make purchasing changes for, as simple as instead of buying, regular copy paper, buying sugar sheet, which is made from waste products in agriculture. Lots of little changes like that, all the way up to, planning your boiler replacement in your building and getting solar panels put on your roof. So, but every action makes a difference. And sometimes we tend to think of the biggest, most expensive ones first, like solar panels or switching to all electric vehicles, which are fantastic, but there are lots of small changes we can make in our daily habits that have equal impact.
There's also money in this. I want to talk about that next. Our chamber chat today is with Jill Doucette. She is the executive director with Synergy, a foundation based here in the South Island area. So Jill, when we take a look at having to replace appliances and windows and things that you've talked about, there are occasionally incentives in place. In other words, money, grants are put forward by government. Tell me about that a little bit. And this, again, your organization can help people find those, but tell me about some of that stuff.
Yeah, there's always a rotation of different funding programs at different times, but they tend to be around, putting in new lighting, getting new efficient appliances. Those ones are typically done through utilities, so BC Hydro and Fortis. Then there's electric car rebates. So if you are looking to upgrade to even and having an electric bicycle as part of your company fleet or your day-to-day commuting, you can get incentives from those, usually through provincial programs like Clean BC, et cetera, or sometimes federal programs. So there's quite a few incentives out there to make some of those changes. It's just being aware that they're out there. And sometimes there's also incentives like, for example, getting rid of your old oil tank and replacing in your oil heating system in your home and replacing that with an air source heat pump, which if that's your situation, you still have the old oil system. There's significant cost savings, as well as dramatic reduction in your carbon footprint to switch that system to air source heat pumps. So sometimes there'll be local initiatives through the local municipalities to incentivize those changes as well.
There was a program a number of years ago, well, not that many, I guess, called Solar Colwood. Do you remember that? That was an incentive for people to, things like that are something worth considering too, right?
Yeah, Solar Colwood is since complete, but it was a great program to just really kickstart the solar economy here in Victoria. And, you can even find companies now that will come in, install the solar panel and be a micro utility. So they just charge you for the energy and you don't have to put up the $1,000 up front. So there's all these new business models now that make it affordable to get into the renewable energy space. And if you plan to live in your house for another 20 years, or you have a long-term lease on your business, that can start to make a lot of sense.
You do something that's a green certification program. We've kind of intimated that in this conversation so far, but tell me what that is and what it entails and what's the benefit to the person undertaking that.
For sure. So the Vancouver Island Green Business Collective is something we started in 2013, and it was really about let's provide a straightforward, simple, and meaningful checklist of actions that businesses can do if they're in retail, restaurant, if they're a spa or salon, et cetera. And businesses are certified based on how many actions they're able to complete on the checklist as silver, gold, or green. Green, of course, being our top level.
Right.
And some of those businesses that have been in the program for a number of years are now classified as green leaders because they have been steady at that green level for a number of years. The program actually gets harder as well. Every 2 or 3 years, we revise the checklist and help. So it's really about continually raising the bar and for every business, making continual improvements. And if you see that logo on a business's door, they usually have a decal right on their front door. That can tell the consumer as well that this business is doing what they can to reduce their environmental footprint continually, year over year. We go to the businesses every single year and verify and help support them to implement new actions. So that's a great signal to consumers too, who are looking to support more green businesses in their community, but don't know how to identify who truly are the green businesses in the community.
It's a bit of a source of pride as well for the business and the employees to do that too.
Absolutely. And they get really competitive sometimes amongst one another on who is the top ranking retail store or who is that top ranking, who's the greenest restaurant in the community.
Yeah. Should we drop some names and talk about some of those places now? Can you tell me who the greenest restaurants are? Some of them are the businesses that you've worked with?
It's always changing, because they're always trying to up one another. So I'd have to check out the website. But I know one that kept the top ranking for a while was Big Wheel Burger. And I mean, they were the first zero waste fast food restaurant. They recycle their waste cooking oil, which gets turned into biodiesel, and they use that for their delivery van. I mean, they're just doing everything that is absolutely possible and always trying to do a little more every year.
Yeah, everything from the container to the napkins to the utensils all go into the same place. So they're a chamber champion too with our chamber. Something that our chamber has identified, I mean, we kind of knew this before COVID, but it sort of proved it. And the challenges to our supply chain right now between the rain elements with the Coquihalla and just supplies getting in from other parts of the world because of labor issues and all the rest of it. But food security for this region is a big deal. We import 90% of what we consume. So the idea of thinking, buying, shopping, cooking, eating local is a big part of what you guys do too, right?
Yes, absolutely. So our foundation has three main pillars. We work on helping businesses green their operations. We work on local food security and circular economy. And the issue that you're talking about right now with supply chain leans into both the food security question and also circular economy, because we don't have access to the basic goods that we need right now because our economy is and our supply chains are so long and disparate. So that as an island, that does create quite a few risks for us. So, but particularly with the food program, we were quite heartbroken to see how disproportionately the pandemic was affecting people. So, in the early days of the pandemic, in 2020, we decided to do a program called Myfit Farms, and it was really about like, let's crowdfund. Let's pull on all of our wonderful partnerships like Van City and United Way, and basically purchase thousands and thousands of food growing kits. And, we had a goal of like, let's do 500 homes every single year and make sure 500 homes who are vulnerable to the pandemic and food insecurity get their own kit to grow food at home, get them started on growing their own food. Turns out that that's like 6 truckloads of soil and just an absolute way bigger project than we had first anticipated, but it was incredibly rewarding. We had amazing volunteers come out, and it just really pointed out like, this is not that hard. Working on food security, we have all the ability, I think, to grow more of our own food and increase that percentage of food that we grow here on the island. We have the land, we have the resources, and we have the people wanting to grow their own food, but we do need more land access and more enabling mechanisms and more people to support local farmers to really bolster that local food economy that we have here.
Yeah, and the part of it that aligns with the Chamber and what we do is that we are A, creating jobs in other jurisdictions to grow and produce our food, and B, the carbon footprint of bringing that stuff here is something that could be eliminated or lowered if we were to do more of it here at home. There are still people out there that are climate deniers. I want to talk about that next. Our guest today on the Chamber Chat is Jill Doucette, the Executive Director of the Synergy Organization, which is a foundation and overall an organization that helps us all better understand our stewardship of the planet. What do you say to someone who says, well, this climate change thing isn't real? What's your answer to that?
I would say, honestly, I would say that's fine. I'm not here to change something linked to your core beliefs, but let's say climate change isn't real. The best thing about working on reducing emissions is that it inherently makes our communities better. So let's say, we got the science wrong, maybe, probably not, but let's say that happened. Well, we've now supported more innovative small businesses, made BC more competitive, reduced our energy use, have cleaner air to breathe, reduced particulate matter, and we've protected our water systems, natural ecosystems, and we don't have as much gross garbage around. I mean, that just kind of sounds like a better place no matter what. Yeah. So what I try to focus on is the common ground there. What about that whole transition? Because we're talking about more so a broader economic transition fueled by the climate change movement. What about that can we get on the same page with and start to just do some good work together? So I really don't care if somebody wants to deny climate change in particular. They could also say I'm 7 feet tall. Like, sure, that's an idea, but let's talk about the things that we agree on and do something about that. I really feel there's just too much polarization already in the world today. So we really do just focus on common ground, common goals.
I think we also can't lose sight of the fact that there's great economic benefit in it. Right, but the pivots and the changes, and we saw the planet sort of heal itself in a way in the early days of the pandemic. That was one of the things that we realized, that suddenly the water was clearer, the air was cleaner. It was just one of those interesting transformations. There are some inconsistencies, though, in how we manage our waste in general. We're very much a consumer culture. How do we address those inconsistencies? We periodically have issues with glass recycling and plastic recycling and that kind of stuff. What kind of gains can we find there?
A lot of the issues we have been seeing with recycling has come from international relationships and the fact that some countries do not want our waste anymore. And we used to have the simple convenience of being able to ship our waste overseas and know that it was being dealt with in some way. Well, now that isn't so much an option in Canada. So that's why we started to see these market fluctuations, because we don't necessarily have the infrastructure yet to recycle our own glass, plastics, etc. But this is a perfect example of where the circular economy provides us with some wonderful solutions, because if we look at these waste streams, a pile of glass, a pile of plastic, you know, why, if we treat it as waste and we ship it overseas, it's a liability to us. We just need to get rid of it, and there's a cost there. If we look at it as a raw resource and something that should be upcycled, created into new products, offset our need to mine new products or create new products, that's just a smarter way to look at a waste stream. So I think that's the current transition, and there has been significant investment through the Clean BC Plastics Action Fund and others in local recycling infrastructure. And I think that's the way we need to go, is look at waste in a totally different way. Like the Restore, I mean, what a fantastic model. They look at, pretty good used items. Some of them are in fantastic quality still, create a whole retail environment around that, and divert thousands and thousands of tons of waste from the landfill while creating a more affordable option for homeowners. I mean, there's just amazing business models out there that can think about waste in a different way.
Yeah, and that supports, the Restore supports Habitat for Humanity, who are a chamber member, as a matter of fact. Just want to wrap this up, Jill, by saying that what we do locally does have an impact worldwide. It could be that we are facing all of these issues all over the planet, thinking that our small part here doesn't matter. No, it matters a great deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And, what's really struck me is understanding our purchasing power, especially in the last few years, knowing that if we go and we visit West Coast Refill or the Zero Waste Emporium, every day we shop there is a vote of confidence to say, this business should keep its doors open. This is what the future of retail should look like. It should have no waste. So every time we shop is a vote for the economy that we want. And especially for those small businesses, someone walks through their door and makes a purchase, they do a little happy dance. And I really think that that's an easy way to start, and it's a really enjoyable experience to look out for and support our local businesses that are being innovative here. So, and that's true as we make purchasing decisions that are international or global in nature as well. But certainly everything starts locally.
Jill, we didn't get around to talking about things like Project Zero and EcoStar, but details of all of that is on your website. Remind us again of what your website is.
Absolutely. Synergyfoundation.ca.
Check it out online. They are a member in good standing of this chamber. Jill Doucette is the executive director. And Jill, great to catch up with you. We appreciate your time, and we'll talk with you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me, Bruce.
You bet. That's Chamber Chats. I'm Bruce Williams. We'll see you next time.